Now, John Cale is perhaps best known as one of the founder members of the Velvet Underground. He's a legendary rock and roll figure with a career that covers everything from art to avant-garde to punk. And last week I was lucky enough to meet him on his home turf. Cale was born in the Welsh Valleys, the son of a coal miner and a teacher, but his parents had other ambitions for him than a life in the pits. A talent for playing the viola led him to study classical music, and at 21 took him to New York, where rock and roll history was made.
'Cause it makes me feel like I'm a man when I put a spike into my vein, and I tell you things aren't quite the same.
Now John Cale's back in Wales for the Soundtrack Film Festival, where he'll be discussing his soundtrack work on films such as American Psycho and playing his solo LP, Paris 1919, in its entirety. It's a beautiful album full of hummable tunes, surprising coming from the avant-garde artist who put the mental into experimental. I met him at the legendary Cardiff pub, the Vulcan. John, you're in Wales to do a live performance of Paris 1919.
Yeah, it's 4 very loud musicians and some strings and some very loud brass. So we've got to put that together in a couple of days at the end of the week and see how that goes.
When Paris 1919 came out, I mean, it's a great album and it got great reviews. You got 5 stars from Rolling Stone. I mean, that must have been brilliant.
Yeah, but when you're working at a record company, you know all the tricks. But you never were sure that this was real gold or fool's gold.
And why, then, was it Paris 1919? If you think about the song itself and then the LP, why did you choose that particularly? Title and then the song.
Well, it's 1970 in LA, and the Cold War was in full fling. And I thought really what was there was this idea that all the problems that we've had come from Paris in 1919.
Paris 1919 was the scene of the Versailles Peace Conference after World War I, which crippled Germany and led ultimately to World War II and the Cold War that followed.
Efficiency, efficiency, they say. Get to know the date and tell the time of day. As the crowds begin complaining how the Beaujolais is raining, down and darkened meetings on the Champs-Elysees.
What is assumed about the Velvet Underground, that Lou Reed wanted to go down the pretty song route and that you wanted to go down the drone experimental route, that actually Paris 1919 is full of beautiful songs. I mean, it's a very pretty record, romantic.
Yeah.
That's not what people were expecting, do you think? I mean,
not at all. No. The Sun is more like a travelogue, colourful sort of vignettes of what I liked about Europe.
Yearning for home is a familiar feeling for Cale, who spent most of his life in America. It was in New York that he co-founded the Velvet Underground with Lou Reed. There was a tension between Cale's classical avant-garde background and Reed's poetic, almost pop sensibilities.
Shiny, shiny, shiny boots of leather.
Improvisation being what I was really about, finding somebody like Lou who could improvise lyrics at the drop of a hat as well and expertly as he could was really, I thought, yeah, now Dylan can do the concerts and write these long songs and get inside people's head, but we can do it and just improvise concerts. We don't need to make records, we can just improvise.
And I understand that you made quite a lot of money out of those gigs, and then they went. I heard that you made so much money that you're taking it out of the gigs in bags. Is that not true? Blatantly not. Though not successful at the time, the Velvets have since proved hugely influential. They were managed by none other than Andy Warhol, who also provided the visuals for their now legendary gigs.
Run, 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 gypsy death in you. Tell you what to do.
We got lucky with Andy.
He was kind of a genius.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden we went from being angry young men with no audience to angry young men with a lot of PR, and then a lot of angry young men who couldn't get along together. there were bands that were really opening for us that suddenly, about 6 months later, were on the charts, and they were zooming past us, and here we were still playing, you know, Venus and Furs and Heroin, and the big debate, is it pretty music or is it the edgier stuff? And it was just, it became a head-on collision. It didn't work after a while.
For you, was the Velvet Underground a success or not?
On certain things, yes. On certain things, not. I mean, if you're thinking in the celebrity sphere, I think one of us was, but you know, that's celebrity. That's one thing. In terms of ideas, I think we all were, and I really want to point to the idea that all four of us were involved in it, and.
But then, is it not very disappointing if that's the truth that all four of you are involved, and then to be ousted out in that way? You must have felt like there was business still unfinished.
Yeah, but you know, those were the days. I mean, you can't deal with somebody then.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was happy to go out and start being a producer, which is what I thought.
What happened.
Yeah, I was clutching at straws, and I thought, hell, one of the things I can do, I think, is produce.
Cale went on to produce some seminal albums for people like Patti Smith, The Stooges and Nico. He also continued as a solo performer, albeit battling drug addiction. He returned to the UK hailed as the godfather of punk, but even the punks weren't prepared for the night he decapitated a dead chicken on stage.
The slam dancing that was going on, and the booze and the gobbing.
Yes, spitting everywhere, yeah.
It was a form of adulation or whatever. So I said, okay, well, think about this one. And so I chopped that chicken, threw it in the back, and when the hall had cleared out, everybody was leaving. I could see them all like kicking the chicken's head back into the front. So I just wondered, was it worth it? Yeah,
chicken entrails are landing.
But I had to do with a band of vegetarians who just rioted and left the next day. And I mean, how smart is that?
It was a drummer, wasn't it? Apparently left.
Yeah. Well, no, he took everybody with him.
Because he was a
So I had to replace the entire band for like Coventry or something like that. They were all in the back of the van, like learning the songs that are going up. Those are the days.
And stitches don't help at all.
But what would you say to animal lovers who'll be absolutely disgusted by this?
I'm very sorry.
When you think about them times like that, because obviously there was a massive performance element in it, but it was also slightly fueled by different substances that you were taking.
Yeah.
Do you feel happy with those performances? I mean, the ideas are great.
What I was fooled by was thinking that I was actually working harder than I would have done without all of that stuff. And I didn't find out until I stopped. And then all of a sudden, you know, the floodgates open, and there was all this stuff coming out. And I think, yeah, all that time, what are you doing?
And what about the idea of soundtracks in general? Because you're also here to talk about American Psycho, aren't you? Which you've done the soundtrack for, and you've done other soundtracks for Basquiat and way back for Andy Warhol's film.
I shot Andy Warhol.
And how do you find that? Do you enjoy doing that?
Well, I was very lucky with I shot Andy Warhol and American Psycho. You really have to have the confidence of the director that you know that it was a horror movie on the one hand, and then there was this classical side to it. So there's little Mozartian sort of references.
Here, kitty, kitty.
Yeah, I have ambitions though.
What are your ambitions?
To be to achieve all of my potential, which I don't know that I have yet. Very serious, though.
I know, wasn't it? I know. I suddenly thought, oh, I'll break for Jack there. And now a song and dance. I'd just like to say, best of luck to the Save the Vulcan campaign. It's a tip-top boozer with a fantastic jukebox.